welcome. It is so amazing to see, because I get to see statistics, how many people are listening. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. It's super exciting. Not for me, not like, woohoo, look who wants to listen to me, but it is so exciting for you, right? Knowing you are the kind of person that shows up for yourself in your relationship. You're not the person who is just like letting life slip past them and just complaining and grousing and never being the change, right? You are an amazing person and I love hanging out with you. So it's so fun to see those numbers of people listening. Now, before I go too far down the line of like, you are the person who is not complaining and grousing, but you're the person who's a change. Perhaps you're a little bit of the complainer and the grouser too. I don't know if you guys have seen this. I love this meme, I guess it is. I've seen it on social media where there's these dogs, little dogs, right? We're not little dog people, we're big dog people. So I see these little dogs, that bark and yip, 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 right? Ultimate, what to me, in my mind, looks like the ultimate complaining and grousing, right? So there's these little dogs on one side of a sliding glass door, and there's little dogs on the other side, and they're both just like jumping on the glass and barking at each other and growling at each other and yip, 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 yip. Like, and then the person opens the door and suddenly, everybody's quiet. Everybody's like, no, nothing's going on here. Suddenly, I'm not so big and mean and feisty and full of drama, right? The way we like to post things on those social media places, so easy for us to complain and grouse. Yep, yep, yep. We're all guilty of it. I know. The amazing thing about coaching and you being here for coaching, getting this coaching, and especially if you come in and get coaching, one-on-one or group coaching, it's like your mind is that little dog that is just in all of the drama and extreme ways of being and barking out of control. And coaching is like opening that glass door and gives you a little, hang on, let's just put a pin in it and slows things down, right? And helps us to be able to go from the dramatic and just out of controlness to, hang on, how can I manage my mind just a little bit differently and not feel all that terribleness? Like think about those little dogs, like their heart rates are just through the roof and the energy that uses, and that really isn't necessary, right? Nothing's going wrong here with having the other dog on the other side of the glass. They're not actually hurting you. There's no problems, right? Coaching helps us slow this down. And so we can be in a place where our minds are a little quieter. We get a little bit of perspective, open that glass door. How do I really want to relate to that other puppy on the other side of the door? In this case, how do I want to relate to my amazing, beautiful, perfect partner? I'm going to keep saying it. You guys are perfect for each other because you are in it together. Today, I'm going to teach you the most powerful tool that I will ever teach you, the most powerful coaching tool that you could learn. This is kind of the real foundation. When I talked about in earlier episodes about tools, I'm going to teach you tools. This is like the engine. This is the fire engine. This has the tools. All the other tools are going to hang off of this tool. This is the most important one. So I'm even calling this is just episode 1 on this because I want you to get the layout of it. I want you to get the idea of it. It's super simple and yet extremely powerful. And so there's kind of two pieces of it, right? Like it's really, really simple. And so I can teach it to you right now, but the power is in how we use it. And so that takes a little bit more nuance. So I'll give you more and we'll work through it more next week. But I want you to have the framework to start working on it right now. Because when you know this tool, you can change anything in your life, right? You can create the relationship that does feel perfect and connected and full of love and respect and honor and growth and really be the best relationship ever. This is what I want for you. It's what I want for myself. This is the tool that's going to get you there. Okay. So it's really simple. There are 5 parts to it. There are 5 lines to it. We call this tool the model, right? And that's just kind of the name that I get from my coaches and where I went to coaching school and this particular framework. There are other frameworks that are similar to this, but this one we call the model, and it's just very clean. With these 5 lines, they're just going to have one word or one sentence for every line, except for the 4th line, because, there's always an exception to every rule, right? My spouse gets 5 days off. Well, except for those debit days and, those overtime days and, well, you know what I mean. There's an exception to every rule. So 5 lines, keeping it very simple on all the lines, except for line number 4. We get a little bigger on line number 4. Each of these lines explains everything that happens in the world, in a life, in our human experience. So that's why it's such a powerful tool, because all the things that are happening around us can go into the model. We can put things in a place, we can organize it, right? It makes things easier to find when we have things organized and sorted. And then that's where you get that nice 10,000-foot view that I talk about that coaching does for us, right? Sliding the glass out. Okay, puppies, let's get ourselves organized and see what's really going on here. So it just provides this beautiful framework, right? To work from, to know where everything is. So let's get started. We're going to start at the top with the first line. The first line we call the circumstance line. Okay. Circumstances are things that are factual in the world. They are neutral. They are not good. They are not bad. They are just facts. Okay. Circumstances. Circumstances oftentimes get confused with line number 2, which are our thoughts. Our thoughts are the way we interpret or the way we make meaning or what we say about a circumstance in the world. Now, here's another part where it gets tricky. I said, remember one thing for every line. When we work with this, when I coach people through, I know any particular circumstance has a bunch of thoughts. You can have a lot of different thoughts about one circumstance in the world, right? You have a circumstance for you. If you're married, you and your partner are married, you've been married for X number of years to fill in their name, right? That is a circumstance. It is not good. It is not bad, but you have lots of thoughts about this marriage, right? You have lots and lots of thoughts. Some of them are good thoughts. Some of them are bad thoughts, right? You have lots of thoughts. When you're building the model though, remember I say I want one line or about one sentence per line. So when we build out and we work with a model, we just pick one of the thoughts. Even though I know you have lots, to help you get organized, you just choose one. Okay. So a particular circumstance comes with a thought. We choose one. And from that thought will produce a particular feeling, right? A feeling in our body, an emotion. We've talked about the fuel. Our feelings are the fuel part of the model. So, and the reason why we're just picking one thought is because one thought is what produces one feeling. You may have a different thought about the same circumstance and it will produce a different feeling. So we want to just have it nice and simple. One thought, one feeling. What's the feeling that goes with that thought? Because the way we feel, feeling is fuel, it fuels our actions. This is line number 4. This is the line that I said we can put more stuff on. Because we kind of have, you can think of actions in 2 ways. You have actions that are things that you do in the world. And then there are your inactions as well, the things you don't do, the way you don't show up, right? Things you leave off the table. Depending on how you feel will dictate what you do and what you don't do. And then the last line, the 5th line, are the results that you have, the R line. What is it? All these actions and inactions, what does it give you in the world? What is the result of this? Oftentimes, your result looks a lot like your thought, how you're thinking. They oftentimes line up. Not always exactly one for one, but they oftentimes line up. All right, so 5 lines, keeping it simple, 1 sentence or word per line, except for line number 4, your actions and your inactions. Let me give you a little example here. This is kind of just a simple example right now, just to illustrate it. So a circumstance right now is you are listening to the podcast, Relationships on Fire. My thought is, thank you very much. I'm so glad that you're here, but I'll set my thought aside for the moment. But it's just a fact. You are listening to a podcast called Relationships on Fire. It's about your relationship. It teaches you tools, and we focus on particularly people who are in first responder relationships, although that may or may not be you. But that is just a fact. You are listening to a podcast called Relationships on Fire. Now, from this, you are going to have a particular thought. And one thought you might have is, I am helping my relationship, right? I listen to this podcast, Relationships on Fire, neutral circumstance. I'm helping my relationship. Could be a thought that you have. And from that particular thought, you might feel kind of hopeful, right? No matter what's happening in your relationship, but you're like, I'm listening to this podcast, and I think I'm really helping my relationship, and you feel hopeful. And from this feeling of hopeful, some actions, what would you be doing from a place of hopefulness? You might notice that your brain goes and collects stories of good things in your relationship, even if there's other things going on, right? You collect good memories and good stories. You see the places, that are going well. You speak to your partner in a positive manner, right? Yeah, I'm hopeful that we're going to keep going and things are going to be better and we're going to feel good and we are the perfect people to be in this relationship. Some of the things you might not be doing is you when you're feeling hopeful, we don't complain as much, right? We're not being upset. We're not looking at the negative things. This is what you're leaving behind when you're feeling hopeful. And the result of this is you start to feel better. You feel better in your relationship just simply by thinking, I'm helping my relationship by listening to this podcast, right? That is a model. Now, another model could be same circumstance. You're listening to the podcast, Relationships on Fire, again, Thank you very much. I'm so glad you're here. I think it makes you the perfect person for your relationship. That's my thought. But you get to have the thought that you have, right? Whatever it is, we want to meet you right where you are. You could be having the thought, it's not going to matter, right? I'm listening to this podcast. That's neutral. That's a circumstance. It won't matter. When you have that thought, how do you feel? Maybe defeated? When you feel defeated, what are the things that you do? How do you show up in your life? You might be collecting negative stories about your relationship, speak about it in a negative manner. You might be looking at all the problems. What are the things you're not doing? You're not getting curious about what's possible. You're not letting yourself see a slice of light, right? A slice of some good things that are in there, even when there may be a bunch of bad things. But when you're feeling defeated, you might not even notice the pieces that are good. And the result of this is nothing changes. It doesn't matter that you're listening to it because you're feeling from this deflated place. Same circumstance, two different ways to think about it that produce different feelings, drive different actions, and give you different results. This is the model, these 5 simple lines. Now, before we get into things like affirmations and the power of positive thinking, those can really be the pitfall of the model. It's not just about, our thoughts are what drive everything or what create everything. It's not just about putting in positive thoughts, positive thinking. Now, I do introduce this to you. I do offer you, right? Like I started the podcast today of reminding you and seeing how you are the perfect person in your relationship. Your spouse is perfect and whole. You're amazing. Your relationship is wonderful. I offer that to you. And it's not that I want you to go out and like shove that one in. If I just keep saying that one over and over again, I will create that model, right? Which is better than maybe the model you're in right now. The problem with the idea of just going into affirmations or positive thinking or really trying to push into a new model is you still have the old one. At the end of every show, I close every show by inviting you to show up with curiosity and love. I don't invite you to show up with judgment and shoulding on yourself, right? I invite you to show up with curiosity and love. And this is the space in which you get the power of the model, is to have full love for yourself in a model that isn't necessarily producing the results that you want. To let yourself be in that for a moment, to not reject your current model, but we want to just see it, to allow it, to be face to face with it. Then you can get curious about how to start letting it go, about laddering towards a new model, which may look like a little bit more of that power of positive thinking. But without really allowing yourself in that first place to be where you are, we're just covering up the old model. So this week, as you go out into your human life, in the human world, you're going to have thousands of thoughts. You're going to have a particular set of circumstances, and you're going to have lots and lots of thoughts about them. And you're going to have lots of feelings, and you're going to be doing a lot of things. And there's going to be a lot of stuff that you're not doing, that you're leaving off the table. It's going to produce results in the world. Use the model this week to start to be in observance of this fire engine, of this engine, of this most important tool, to start sorting things out and to see, oh, this is a circumstance. Me listening to a podcast is totally neutral. How I think about listening to the podcast, that is what drives my feelings and my actions and my results. What do I think about myself listening to the podcast? What do I think about my relationship? How do I feel? What are the things I'm doing and not doing? And what are the results? Put it into these little categories. Start organizing it, organizing your mind. This is how we use a coaching tool for us and not against us, with a lot of curiosity and openness, lots of love for yourself and who you are right now. You're in the perfect place. All of the ways that you've been thinking and feeling and acting have gotten you to this place in your life. And there's lots of great things about this place in your life. And there are things that you would like to change about this place in your life. This is the human experience. Let us be open to see how we can start to organize our minds in a way to invite us into creating our life and having it, less of it just happening to us. All right, I'll see you next week. We're going to dive into the model a little bit more, get into some of these lines a little bit more, kind of step number 2 with it. Stay committed. Be committed to yourself, to this process, to your marriage, to you, to growth. Be present. Life doesn't just happen. Take a few moments. Doesn't have to be all the time, but just take that step back view and really be present to what is. What do I feel right now? Show up with curiosity and love for yourself and for your spouse. And I'll see you next week. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you can get every episode. And when you are ready to be in action, come find us. Facebook, Instagram, or our website. It's all the same name, relationshipsonfire.com. We've got that S on there. There's lots of us having relationships. So relationships with an S on fire.com. Thanks so much. Saying goodbye, your fire and water gal, Cori Myka. See you next time.